Candidates, start your campaign engines. We already knew Canadians would be going to the polls. That will be on October 21st. Now we know when the 6-week campaign officially kicks off. Tomorrow, Evan Dyer tells us what to expect on day one.
Well, tomorrow morning, Justin Trudeau will kick off this campaign with a visit to Governor General Julie Payette at Rideau Hall. That will find his main rival, Andrew Scheer of the Conservatives, in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. That's where he plans to be tomorrow morning. Quebec, very important, of course, to the Conservative Party. They're hoping to make gains there in this election. But he will also head during the day to the other province that is key to the Conservatives' hopes. That is Ontario. And we expect to see him in the 905 zone, Vaughan, specifically in the latter part of the day. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh already began his campaign on Sunday. He didn't want to wait for the writ, and we expect to see him in the GTA as well, and probably also making a foray into southwestern Ontario tomorrow. Green Party leader Elizabeth May will be in her party's stronghold of Vancouver Island. She'll be starting the campaign in Victoria. Going into this election, the Conservatives in many ways in the strongest position with all of their candidates nominated and more money in the bank than any other party. The NDP at the other end of the spectrum, only about 205 candidates nominated as of last count, 205 out of 338. They say they'll get there by election day and have a full slate of candidates, but it's looking increasingly difficult. Also, very short of money to face this campaign, which is considerably shorter, it must be said, than the last campaign, only 41 days, just over half the time of the 2015 campaign. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
And we have special programming tomorrow morning for the election call. It starts at 9 a.m., hosted by Rosemary Barton. You can see it here on CBC Television as well as on CBC News Network and the CBC Gem app. Too many students, too little room. Classrooms in Ontario are dealing with larger class sizes after the province cut funding to education, and students say they are paying the price. Alicia San is live at one of the schools dealing with this. And Ali, what are students there telling you?
Well, Dwight, while the province told school boards to tighten up staffing levels, the students at several schools told me that that has resulted in a tight squeeze in the classroom.
There's 40 kids in my class and there's too many desks and you have to shuffle through and there's not enough seats for every student and some kids have to pull up a chair to some desks.
Which class of yours is really crowded?
All of them.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've got 30 plus people in most classes.
What is it usually like at school?
19 to 20 people.
My business class is so full, there's not enough desks, there's not enough chairs, there's not enough computers for everyone.
So then what are students doing?
Literally, we can't do anything. They just bring extra chairs and we just sit there.
We knew provincial cuts were going to result in higher class sizes. The class average was projected to increase from 22 to 28 over the next 4 years.
We are hearing isolated cases of some classes that are 40 or more students. Obviously, that's not normal.
So, is this happening because of the staffing cuts?
At this point, it's too early to say. We have to first look at all of our enrollment data. Once that's in, should be in the next week or two, then we can look at that and see how it compares to previous years.
The Ontario Secondary Teachers Union, in the meantime, is saying, told ya.
It's slightly worse than we even projected. I hope the school boards will join us in raising our voices against that. We certainly have already seen students and parents doing that.
Right now, principals are sending memos to parents, like this one from Northern Secondary School. At high schools that experience an enrollment greater than projection, there may be some reorganization of classes and/or they may be assigned additional teachers. And by the start of October, class sizes will normalize, meaning they will reflect expected class sizes.
Now, that can happen naturally as students drop or change courses at the beginning of the year, but if it comes down to it, school boards can deploy more teachers. Right now, the Toronto District School Board at least has 80 teachers on standby, which they can assign to some of these more crowded classrooms. But before they resort to that, they said they are waiting on the attendance data to come in within the next couple of weeks. And the Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce's office echoed that, saying it is far too early to sound the alarm just yet. Send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Witnesses say they heard screams just moments before a woman was struck and killed by a cement truck this morning. It happened near Yonge and Eglinton, which is booming with condo development. Greg Ross spoke to residents who feel the area has become more dangerous because of all the construction vehicles.
You walk out your door and you don't know if you're going to come back, you know? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sheila Ramda was just steps away from the area where a 54-year-old woman was hit and killed by a cement truck just after 10 o'clock this morning. Police say the woman was crossing through the intersection here at Erskine when the truck turned off of Yonge Street, hit her, and dragged her for several meters.
Could have been me crossing the street. Like, I live here, I live on Erskine. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Ramdan doesn't only live in the area, she works here as well, in this family-owned food truck across the street.
I wish they would put a traffic light at the corner because I stay here and I see so many near-miss accidents.
Ramdan says a big part of the problem is that in recent years, a number of high-rise condo developments have started in the area, which is leading to more and more congestion because of construction vehicles.
Definitely getting busier in this neighborhood. Yeah, definitely getting busier. It's total chaos. Yeah, a lot of trucks coming.
At this point, police have not laid any charges against the driver of the cement truck.
They're going to want to know where the vehicle came from, how it started its day, and where it was on its way to. We've got commercial truck inspectors here. That's part of the any commercial truck operator's sort of daily requirements is to do a pre-trip inspection of that truck, and so that's going to be part of the investigation.
You can't imagine what the driver is going through on this. I feel sorry for him.
Ramdan says the driver of the truck was very distraught. He had to be restrained and eventually taken to hospital. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
20 years ago, 15-year-old Sharmini Anandavol disappeared on her way to a job that police believe didn't even exist. 4 months later, her remains were found in a North York ravine. Still ahead, the jailhouse interview with the man one detective believed killed her. And I talked with a journalist who covered the case and is now the host of a new CBC podcast looking into Sharmini's murder, about why she's now revisiting it.
Her father had given me a picture of Sharmini that I gave back to him after we used it in the newspaper, and he said, no, please keep it. Wow. So for 20 years I had that up at my desk, and I thought about her a lot. I think also the fact that it was never solved, no one was ever arrested, so sort of unfinished business.
3 young women are headed to the Bahamas to help in the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. One of them is the granddaughter of Bob Marley, and the women will be using the reggae legend's family property in their aid effort. Lorenda Redekop is just back from speaking to them.
Last-minute preparations before they head to the Bahamas tomorrow. One of the young women has a grandfather whose music lives on.
I wanna jam it with you.
I come from a family that has a great name, and that comes with a lot of great responsibility, and we have the opportunity to do a lot of important things today, so why not apply what we've learned?
The Marley family also owns a resort on Nassau. It's a part of the country not affected by the hurricane. It'll be home base for their aid effort, and it's an area where many of those most in need are being flown to.
One Love is not just a song that my grandfather sang. One Love is action. So let's get active and use what we can in ways that we can.
The women have started a fundraising page. It's a small effort. They felt compelled to do something.
I'm watching the news and I'm watching what's happening, the devastation. I'm watching how slowly people are responding. I'm thinking about what I can do as a human.
In the Bahamas, difficult scenes. Rescuers continue to find more bodies among the devastation. Officials have warned the number of those killed will likely rise dramatically. Hundreds are still missing. Thousands of people have been evacuated from the 2 hardest hit islands, Grand Bahamas and Abaco, to the capital.
The one thing that gives us hope, and hope is gone right now, but it seems to be trickling back in, is seeing the people that care, that's come from outside to show, that they care and love and bring in supplies.
The women hope to focus their efforts on children and their psychological well-being.
We bought crayons and stuff just for them to keep their mind off of the tragedy and the trauma that's around them.
Today, a therapist just confirmed she's joining them.
She's like, I have to come. My heart, and this is how we all felt. My heart is crying. Like, I have to take action right now. And I called her and she said, I'm in. She doesn't even know where she's going to get the money from.
They say this trip is just a first step. They plan to keep up their support in the months and years to come. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
A lot of us run away from winter to go vacation in those spots. It's nice to give something back now, Colette.
Yeah, Dwight, I think you make an excellent point there. That's right. And good on them bringing hope, as they say, which is nice to see. If you've been hoping for a warm-up in terms of some of the temperatures, well, you've got that coming your way as well, because this is what we're looking at. Heating up into Wednesday, the humidity rising too, but then it's so short-lived. Reversal of all that into Thursday. So the warm front is coming in as we speak, but then into Thursday, the cold front will have passed and we get into the cooler sector then of that system. But in between, with these fronts passing us, we are looking at some intermittent thunderstorm activity in there too, and certainly some cloud cover and some scattered showers. So I'll go into some more detail about that, but I just want to point out the sustained wind. So I said we're kind of waiting for this warm front. It's nearly over top of us. So Hamilton, the winds are from the southwest, Kitchener as well, and back, St. Catharines too, back into southwestern Ontario. That southwesterly flow has been pushing the temperature. Like in Windsor, it's 29 degrees right now. Hamilton as well, been hitting the mid-20s, 25, 26, but look at Toronto still just coming up a couple of degrees now. Oshawa, you're still looking at those winds not shifting yet, so just upper teens. The warmth is headed your way. We also had some of that precipitation from earlier that kind of went around the city towards the north and then eastward. Some that was back to the west has been breaking up a little bit, but all that instability is that warm front is in place here. So through the overnight hours, we will see some scattered showers and thunderstorms, and they should be tapering off before the morning commute. That excessive heat warning, though, is still in place for the Windsor area and back towards Chatham-Kent, because they're looking at a Humidex value of about 41 into tomorrow. For us, it'll be mid-30s. Again, as we get towards the latter part of the day tomorrow, a repeat that we could see some showers and thunderstorms coming back into the forecast. So kind of tonight, and then again tomorrow night will be bookended, and in between we'll be experiencing this heat. So 19, well above seasonal, not only for the low, but for that high of 28 tomorrow, Dwight.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Renee Zellweger walking the red carpet at TIFF just this last hour. She stars as the legendary Julie Garland in Judy, a big star filling in another big star's Ruby Slippers. Kelda Ewan joins us live now from the red carpet. And Kelda, this film focuses on the star's final days.
That's right, Dwight. It takes place in 1968 during the twilight of Garland's career, and the film marks what many are calling the triumphant return of Renee Zellweger. As you said, and as you saw, she walked the red carpet just moments ago. A lot of fans outside, very excited fans. Now, this film, of course, Judy Garland's story is well known. She was a child star, became a legendary Hollywood actress. We know her in Wizard of Oz, Star is Born, Meet Me in St. Louis, the list goes on, but she was also a very tragic Hollywood figure. Now, this film centers on her last run of concerts in London just months before she died. At the time, she was broke, struggling to have custody of her children. She was also struggling with addiction to pills and alcohol. Now, this movie is directed by Rupert Gould. This is only his second feature film, but he has an extensive background in theater, and this movie is based on a stage musical, the Tony-nominated End of the Rainbow. The film also stars Finn Wittock and Rufus Sewell as Garland's former husbands, as well as Michael Gambon as the manager of the theater that Garland performs at. But the heart and the soul of the film, of course, is Zellweger. Many people are already raving about her performance, and I spoke to her a few moments ago about what went in to prepare for this role of this legendary actress.
There was so much to discover and explore, but it felt more like, well, Rupert described it mining for treasure, you know? And it was just a series of sort of shared experiments where we were digging together and learning together and just, you know, I don't know, we were motivated by mutual admiration and affection for Judy. So the whole thing just felt like a big celebration, really. So it's hard to think about it in terms of difficulty or challenges. It just felt like a big spoiled, rotten, fun, yes.
We've seen Zellweger sing and dance before, most notably in Chicago, which was actually filmed right here in Toronto. Now, in Judy, as I mentioned, already getting a lot of Oscar buzz. This film actually premiered a few weeks ago at the Telluride Film Festival in Colorado, got a lot of buzz for her performance. This is the second big screening here at TIFF, and the film will have its wide release just a few weeks from now on September 27th. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you for that, Kelda.
She was just a tremendous soul, tremendous woman, courageous, and you know, just one of the greatest humans that God have made.
A powerful story about one of history's most inspiring heroines. Harriet makes its world premiere tonight, documenting the legendary life of abolitionist Harriet Tubman. We'll take you to that red carpet coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
It has been 20 years since the remains of Sharmini Anandavul were found in a Toronto ravine. The 15-year-old left home months earlier, telling her family she was on the way to a new job. A new CBC podcast is taking a closer look at that case, specifically why no one was charged in her killing. It includes an exclusive jailhouse interview with the man who was the prime suspect. Morelli has more.
Police have now moved to a level 3 search.
Please release my daughter, please, I beg you.
Inside the mall where she was last seen, a booth is manned by volunteers hoping someone saw something.
It was a disappearance that gripped the city of Toronto. Sharmini Anandaval left her family's apartment on a Saturday morning in June. She never came back. 4 months later, a heartbreaking conclusion.
On the weekend, police found skeletal remains in a North York park.
No one was ever charged for the murder of the 15-year-old. And 20 years later, her family doesn't have any more answers. A new CBC podcast, Uncover Sharmini, is taking a closer look at the decades-old case. Host Michelle Shepard returned to the ravine in Toronto's East Don Parklands, where Sharmini's remains were found, speaking with the former lead investigator.
But this does bring back memories.
And to the man who was at the center of a police investigation in 1999.
That's been a long time, like 20 years ago is a long time.
Stanley Tippett is in prison today for an unrelated conviction. In 2008, he abducted and sexually assaulted a 12-year-old Peterborough girl. Before that, he was convicted of criminal harassment on 2 occasions against 2 separate women. He denies he committed any of the crimes and says he did not kill Sharmini.
I think, when it comes to the investigation, I think a lot of time was wasted. I think they wasted a lot of energy focusing on the wrong people.
Tippett lived in an apartment on the floor below the Anandaval family in this building, and once told reporters he'd drive her and her brothers to swimming lessons. Sharmini's parents say it was Tippett who offered her a job, the one she was supposed to be going to, on the day she disappeared.
When you're saying about inconsistencies, that should be left with the authorities to investigate and to do their job.
He was definitely in the forefront of the investigators at the time.
The head of Toronto's cold case unit says there wasn't enough evidence to charge Tippett, and police only have 1 shot.
We have that law in Canada of double jeopardy, so we have to be sure in what we're doing and the chance that we get to charge someone and bring them before a court.
One of the former lead investigators on the case said the problem was there was no physical evidence connecting Tippett to Sharmini, but says he's absolutely certain of Tippett's guilt.
I always thought there was a prosecutable case.
And Stanley Tippett is still considered a suspect.
Well, his name certainly still is in the file, and if we had any further information that we could investigate on that, we would.
Tippett was declared a dangerous offender in 2011. That means he may never get out of prison. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Sharmini's case was one of the first crime stories covered by reporter Michelle Shepard. Shepard is the host of the CBC podcast Uncover Sharmini. And earlier today, I had a chance to talk to her about the case and why she felt it was important to revisit it so many years later.
I think there's a few reasons that this one stuck with me in particular. One was just her family. She has a wonderful, warm family. I think you interviewed them back then too. And I kept in touch with them over the years. Her father had given me a picture of Sharmini that I gave back to him after we used it in the newspaper, and he said, no, please keep it. Wow. So for 20 years I had that up at my desk, and I thought about her a lot. I think also the fact that it was never solved, no one was ever arrested. And I was lucky in my journalism career, I get to usually follow stories for years from start to finish, so sort of unfinished business. And the third reason is back 20 years ago, and again for this podcast, I was able to interview the main suspect in the case.
Stanley Tippett.
Stanley Tippett.
And I want to know how you were able to get him to talk to you.
So when we started this podcast with producer Kathleen Goldhar, we knew right away we had to reach out and see if he was going to talk. It was going to change what the podcast might be like.
I mean, he's in prison, but not for this crime.
That's right.
Yes.
So he is in prison as a dangerous offender. So he had 3 other convictions he had 3 convictions. He wasn't charged in Sharmini's case. He had these 3 convictions, so he is designated a dangerous offender, which means he may never get out. So we reached out to Corrections Canada, and we requested an interview, and he agreed right away.
Would he talk to you about Sharmini, though?
At first, he didn't want to. We were very clear that this is what we were doing the podcast about. He believes that in his latest conviction, which is the sexual assault of a 12-year-old girl, he was wrongly convicted. So we wanted to talk about that. And we did, and we looked into his claims of innocence in that as well. But eventually we got him talking about about Sharmini and about the case.
And you also speak to the family for this podcast?
Yeah.
What was that like, reconnecting?
Well, you know, as I said, I'd kept in touch with the father, who's just so lovely. So
And she has 2 brothers also.
And she has 2 brothers and a mom. And so when we started this, I met with her dad again. And it brought me right back to, 20 years ago. He seemed exactly the same. And he said he'd ask his family, but he thought it was probably too painful to participate. But he gave his blessing, to go forward. And said
Still to this day, 2 decades later, still too painful for them to revisit this.
Well, what actually ended up happening was a couple months after the meeting, one of Charmini's brothers sent me a text and said that they changed their mind and they did want to talk about it. And that was really interesting because if you remember, they were 13.
They were young, yeah.
13
I
and
think
17.
she was the middle in between the 2 boys,
That's
right?
right. Right. So she was 15. Kathis, the youngest boy, he was just 13, and Dinesh, the older brother, was 17. So now they're in their 30s. Kathis is a father himself, and they've done really, really well.
What are you hoping to accomplish with this, Michelle? You're trying to help this family, help us understand, because this thing just seems to be out there still, and there's no closure for them.
There never is going to be closure, but for a lot of people that we interviewed, it really changed the course of their life, this homicide, and they want to see somebody held responsible. I think we hope to accomplish a couple things. We called this podcast Charmini in particular because we wanted to remember her. And we talk a lot about her. And I got to know her, 20 years later through this. And she was just, by all accounts, this remarkable,
loved by a lot of people, her teachers, her neighbors, her friends, yeah.
And I think the beauty of a podcast is you have so much time to get into the nuances of a story. So, we hope we explain sort of the community and inside an investigation. And I hope what we've uncovered in the investigation maybe gives the Crown Attorney's office, a chance to perhaps look at the case again.
You can listen to the first 2 episodes of Uncover Charmini. Find it using your podcast player of choice, or just head to cbc.ca/Charmini.
People know, and I think people are well aware that suicide happens in the subway, so it's not a matter of it being news to people.
The TTC is rethinking the way they deal with suicides. The goal? Break the silence and the stigma. We'll explain how they are getting commuters like you to help, coming up next.
I've seen that work really, really
Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. It's a subject that is front and center at the TTC, where officials are working to prevent suicides.
These are desperate acts that really leave us reeling and always asking the question, why? It is a horrifying experience for frontline employees and for standbyers who witness this tragedy, and I can tell you we take this very serious at the TTC.
Transit officials announcing a new outreach and support program today. It's aimed at helping TTC customers and witnesses of subway suicide. The transit system also unveiling a newly redesigned crisis-linked suicide prevention poster that will go in all 75 subway stations. Already this year, 9 people have died by suicide on the transit system, and there's been a spike in the number of attempts. That's led officials to rethink how they deal with the issue. Joanna Remiliotis joins us now with more on this. And Joanna, the TTC is using a strategy of openness, right? What can you tell us about that?
It's a gradual shift, and it's been happening over the last few years, but it's being done also with a lot of caution and a lot of care, because unfortunately, every time we in the media talk about suicide, there can be or could be a trigger for copycats. So that's always been the concern. And part of addressing that shift is how the TTC is handling that question. And here's an excerpt from the piece that's running on the National tonight on what's been behind that thinking.
We have been developing this suicide prevention program really since 1998. And so
it's always been a priority, and until now, it's been behind closed doors. But being quiet hasn't helped.
We know the ages, but the where and the when is all over.
The TTC holds regular meetings to look for solutions to suicide. There's a new urgency because of an alarming spike in the number of attempts.
Why is it so important to the TTC to be so open and to tackle this in such an open way, even giving us this kind of access?
Well, I guess not talking about it hasn't worked, in summary. So we needed to find some way to be responsible about communicating. You have to find a way to bring it up, to talk about it. I think probably every family in Canada has been touched by suicide and some extended member of the family. So people know, and I think people are well aware that suicide happens in the subway. So it's not a matter of it being news to people.
But at the same time, Joanna, the TTC has to deal with the possibility of copycats. So how do they plan to manage that part of it?
By managing the message, in short, by framing suicide as something that's preventable, as a tragedy, that it's not inevitable, that there is help out there. And the studies have shown when people realize that, and part of today's new initiative, asking commuters to help, is showing that there is so much power in simply being kind and simply paying attention, and that suicide is often an impulse. It can last mere seconds, and a distraction, even a simple hello, can be enough to get somebody off that path and to get them on the path to recovery.
So for sharing that information. Thank you for that. And you can watch Joanna's story tonight on the National at 10 p.m. on CBC television and streaming on the CBC Gem app. If you're looking at your second screen, you got to look up right now. Look at that. A truck somehow comes to rest on the roof of a house. Here's what the OPP say happened Monday night on Highway 64 south of Sudbury. A Penske commercial truck driven by a 24-year-old Scarborough man hit a culvert, flipped vertically, ripped down a hydro pole and several hydro lines before ending up on top of the house. Luckily, no one was injured. The homeowners were on the property at the time, but not inside. One OPP constable we spoke to says she's never seen anything like this before. Looks like the driver was shocked too. He's since been charged with careless driving. Police say they expect that distracted driving played a role in this crash. Just incredible. Our tweet on this story garnered some cheeky responses like, was the house texting? This house should have made eye contact. And from what I'm seeing here, the house clearly wasn't wearing high-vis clothing. Very Colin, I don't know if you saw how the truck driver came out of the truck.
Oh, yeah.
But he was like, what the heck happened there?
And I
Pay
feel
attention,
like
folks.
Yeah, the guy with the dash cam was also kind of like, what did I just see? Yeah, that could have gone so many different ways, but it went the way where no one's hurt, so we can make light of it. And yeah, that house really, what was it doing? Let's go ahead and show you what's going on with the almanac, because what I want to point out here is where an average high is at this time of year, 22. We're kind of close to that at the moment, but it's that we're going to be soaring above that as we go into Wednesday. However, record high for today is just under 35 degrees, and tomorrow it's kind of similar. It's in those 30s, so we're not even approaching records, but we do have some significant warmth that is certainly coming our way for midweek. So there it is, that current temperature of 22, and I've been talking a little bit earlier in the show about how it's that southwesterly flow of the warm front trying to push in and bring these numbers up as we get that warmer flow and get into the warm sector of the system. Oshawa not there yet, so 18. Peterborough at 17, still into the cooler air. You've been sitting in it longer in Hamilton and St. Catharines, and that's why your reading's a little warmer. And Windsor's actually cooled down now to 27. But look at the humidex value there is 35. And look at how the humidity is building, too, as this system moves in all around the GTA and down around the Niagara Peninsula as well. So that heat is what's pushing in. It's going to be humid night overnight tonight. They still have the excessive heat warning for another day for southwestern Ontario, because there the humidex tomorrow may go up to the low 40s. This is what happens in September. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. So summer keeps trying to come back at us, or that real feel of summer. So some spotty showers earlier. They got a little more organized towards the east of the GTA. And really what we're seeing here is this system that's moving through, and then later in the week we're going to have another one coming. They're almost kind of co-joined here. So getting into the warm sector, we do have some of that lift and instability, though, along that. And then along the cold front, we get some more lift. So through the overnight hours, some spotty showers and thunderstorms, a little bit of patchy fog tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow afternoon, some isolated showers starting to pick back up again and coming back at us. So that'll be something that we'll have to watch for carefully into the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. There are your very mild overnight lows. And for tomorrow, there you go, 28 degrees. But Dwight, is going to be feeling like 35. But it is that one-day only event. And that cooler air comes back Thursday.
Well, wear shorts for one day. Thank you for that.
Flip-flops too. You're
yes,
welcome.
ma'am. There's another big change at the White House. U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton is gone after clashing with President Donald Trump over foreign policy. Lindsay Duncombe has more.
Hardly the yes man, John Bolton often disagreed with the president. That's likely why he no longer has a job. Trump tweeted, "I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration, and therefore I asked John for his resignation, which he gave to me this morning." John Bolton has a different version of events, saying he offered his resignation. Regardless of how it went down, this departure leaves Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as the most powerful voice in the administration on foreign policy.
The president's entitled to the staff that he wants at any moment. This is a staff person who works directly for the president of the United States, and he should have people that he trusts and values. And when the president makes a decision like this, he's well within his rights to do so.
The latest disagreement between Bolton and the administration was a plan that fell apart on the weekend to have members of the Taliban come to Camp David to sign a peace deal, the same week as the September 11th anniversary. Bolton was also not supportive of Donald Trump's warm overtures to North Korea, and he didn't like the possibility of a face-to-face meeting with the president of Iran. That meeting could happen later this month at the United Nations. Donald Trump said he would appoint a new national security advisor next week. It will be his fourth. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Washington.
Apple unveiled new versions of its products today, but Apple executives may have more on their minds than just moving new phones and tablets. Apple is among several tech giants being scrutinized for dominating the tech space and leaving little room for competition. Jacqueline Hansen has the details.
This is iPhone 11.
The show is as flashy as always. But behind the scenes, Apple is facing pressure to change its ways. Competitors complain its App Store favors Apple content, and it's not the only tech company to be scrutinized. Yesterday, 50 bipartisan U.S. state attorneys general took on Google over its search results and whether it points people to its own products.
When my daughter is sick and I search online for advice or doctors, I want the best advice from the best doctors. not the doctor and not the clinic who can spend the most on advertising.
Big tech is under increasing pressure. Last week, U.S. federal lawmakers also launched an investigation into Facebook over how it handles users' data. In such a volatile environment, investors aren't as hyped about tech stocks as they used to be.
That selling just started with Tim Cook.
This analyst says even tech company executives, insiders, are selling shares, particularly in Netflix, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon. Insider selling when prices are low is unusual.
If something goes on sale at the supermarket, you know, if it's marked down, you buy it. Unless you think, well, why is it on sale? Maybe it's on sale for a reason. Maybe this tech rally has approached its sale date and insiders are selling.
Insiders could be selling shares for lots of other, even personal reasons. Still, analysts and investors are watching for what happens next, how far regulators go to rein in some of these companies left to run and grow unchecked for years. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX was up by over 42 points. The Dow Jones was also up by almost 74, and the Canadian dollar traded for an average of just over 76 cents US. Stay with us. We'll be right back. York Regional Police asking for your help locating these three men. They say the suspects intentionally set this car on fire in Markham Friday. And you can see one man almost sets himself on fire too. It happened about 5:30 a.m. in the area of Leslie and John Streets. Officers found the vehicle fully engulfed. They say the three men smashed the passenger window and doused the inside with gasoline. The men wore dark clothing and may have suffered some injuries. Police are asking anyone with information to contact them. There were 4 separate shootings in the city overnight, one of them at a busy West End hotel. CBC News spoke to a man who witnessed what happened.
The guys start pushing each other. The shooters try to get away, but the guy just keep following him and pushing. And all of a sudden the shooter grabbed the gun from somewhere in the waistband and just shoot him in the stomach.
The shooting took place at around 10:30 last night at the Crown Plaza Toronto Airport Hotel. The victim was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Earlier in the evening, there was another shooting in the Midland and St. Clair area. The victim there was also seriously hurt. Police say there were 2 other incidents last night where they found evidence of a shooting but no victims. Toronto Police announcing today the $50,000 reward for the unsolved murder of Kissinger Gun has been extended.
We're hoping to appeal to the heart and soul of someone that was there. Kissinger was not, we believe, the intended target. He was an innocent victim leaving a birthday party with his family.
26-year-old Kissinger Gunn was leaving the 42 Supper Club in Liberty Village back in September of 2016. He saw a fight in the parking lot, noticed a friend was involved, and stopped to help. That's when he was shot and killed. Police releasing a sketch today of the suspect. They believe he's between 18 and 22 years old and was in the club before the shooting. They also announced that the $50,000 reward for information that will solve the case has been extended for another year.
I've pulled fire trucks, houses, planes, trains, automobiles. I've lifted many people on my back, and I just am up for any feat of strength.
Car broke down, you need a push? We know who to call. Coburg's Ripped Reverend has broken more than 30 Guinness World Records, mostly for pulling heavy objects. What's behind his supernatural strength? We ask him coming up.
I mean, you've heard from everybody, right? Who have you heard from?
Everyone. Shania Twain.
Hello. I mean, that's it. You can stop right there. I mean, hello, that's all you need. But Trudeau?
Justin Trudeau, John Tory, Steve Nash, the Raptors, the Leafs. It's been crazy. I've been feeling all the love from home, and I truly
Is there anyone you
appreciate
haven't heard
it.
from yet?
Drizzy. Champagne Papi, I'm waiting for you.
Show me how you do.
On Drizzy, give our Canadian star some love. U.S. Open champion Bianca Andreescu making an appearance on the Jimmy Fallon TV show last night. As you're seeing now, she finished the show by teaching Fallon her signature racket flip. Does he get it? Oh, wow, she's good. Rescue's coach Sylvain Bruneau spoke to the media in Montreal earlier today. He went over the highlights of Bianca's U.S. Open performance and the tennis star's next steps.
She can progress in all the areas of her play. She has a fantastic play, but women's tennis is special. There's a lot of strength that's required, and most of the women tennis players have a broad range and she's made a lot of progress, particularly with her serve and also with her forehand, and we want to get her to be able to intercept even more.
Bianca has been celebrating her win since Saturday, but is bringing her trophy home tomorrow. Another TIFF viewing tonight, another true story brought to the big screen. The film Harriet is based on the extraordinary tale of Harriet Tubman. It follows her story as she escaped from slavery and transformed into one of America's greatest heroes. Tashana Reid caught up with the cast and crew earlier today.
The TIFF red carpet welcomed the cast of Harriet, a sweeping historical drama about African-American abolitionist Harriet Tubman.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman. Tony-winning Broadway actor Cynthia Erivo stars as Tubman in the movie that focuses on her escape from slavery and the reasons she risks her life to lead others to freedom. For Erivo, taking on the role of Harriet meant a lot of research, but she hopes to share another part of Tubman's story not seen in the history books.
It's not that I didn't know it, it's just that I didn't see it well explored, and that's that she started from love. The work that she did began in a place of love. She loved her husband, that's why she went back for him. She went back for him originally, and when that didn't work out, when that ended in heartbreak, she chose to change that and turn it to something else and use the opportunity to bring other people to freedom.
The film is full of action-packed sequences following her harrowing journey to freedom through the Underground Railroad. While the movie was filmed in Virginia, part of it is set in St. Catharines, Ontario, where the Underground Railroad ended. The film's director, Casey Lemon, says this movie humanizes Harriet Tubman in a way never seen before.
She felt pain and heartbreak, you know, and her relationship with her family was very important to me. And the themes of family separation are very important. But who she was as a woman, like to present this young woman. She did her work as a young woman. We think of Harriet Tubman, we think of the old woman in the chair, right? But Harriet Tubman was doing this heroic work when she was in her 20s, you know, and it's really an incredibly marvelous thing to think about, a young woman who has this kind of agency.
Lemon says she hopes this film educates people about the legacy and the actions of a true American hero. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
He's the Ripped Reverend breaking records. You won't want to miss this story coming up after the break. It's the second annual Second Harvest Truck Pull. The goal is to get surplus and unsold food from across the city and redirect it to organizations and schools that feed communities. Second Harvest challenged teams to pull a 20,000-pound truck across Nathan Phillips Square, competing to see who can do the 100 pull in the fastest time. That's more than 30 meters, and it looks like the green team won. He may be only one person, but this next man from Coburg can also pull a truck. Reverend Kevin Fast has broken more than 30 Guinness World Records, including most people supported on his shoulders, featured in the 2020 edition of the book. And he does it all for local charities. Take a look.
You guys ready? You guys all ready? Ready? 3, 2, 1.
My name is Kevin Fast. I'm pastor at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Coburg, and I am a strong man. I've pulled fire trucks, houses, planes, trains, automobiles, lifted many people on my back. I just am up for any feat of strength because I just love that particular discipline. The best world record that I've accomplished was pulling a plane. It weighed 416,000 pounds, and I had to pull it over 5 meters. Go! But there's a real mental battle going on in your head, a lot of doubts. And it took about 45 seconds before it actually started moving, and I was giving it max effort. I have a special verse that I use as a motto. It's Joshua 1:9 that says, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And I really take that to heart, and I use it, and it's helped me through a lot. And on the day, it helped me pull a plane. Probably the most important thing of my diet is a poutine. That's where I like to eat French fries covered in gravy, smothered in cheese. I don't have the best diet for this kind of thing, but I eat what I like, and it's worked for me. As for weight training and preparing for strength feats, I go to the gym about 5 times a week, lift heavy weights, and when I'm training for a specific world record, I'll take about 6 weeks of specialized training. If I'm gonna try to break a truck pull record, I'll pull my truck up hills. People are jogging by, and I'm trying to jog up the hill with my truck. It's kind of a funny sight. I believe that my strength is a gift. I received it from God. The benefit of receiving this gift is in so doing, I get to help a lot of people out through children's charities, raising money and awareness for different things. I currently still do world records. Ultimately, if anyone has any connection with this one, I'd love to pull the space shuttle.
Powered by poutine. You go, Rev.
I eat
That's a great
poutine.
story.
It doesn't help me do a
Trust me,
thing.
doesn't make our tummies bigger. All right, we got a few seconds left. You said a warm-up is coming, but it's only going to last for a little bit.
Yeah, we've got one day of it, and that's going to be your hump day. So maybe this will help you get over the hump to the end of the week. Overnight tonight, we are looking at a low around 19 degrees, way above seasonal values. Some scattered showers and thunderstorms through the overnight, and then into the early morning, some fog patches could linger into that morning commute. Otherwise, we will see a repeat tomorrow. So we soar to 28 degrees, Dwight. It's going to feel like we're in the mid-30s. We get into that repeat of seeing some scattered showers and thunderstorms again tomorrow afternoon and evening and overnight.
Well, we'll get the umbrellas out. I'm craving poutine.
I know.
That's it for us today. Thank you for joining. Mike Wise has you covered at 11.